dialogue. I am Dr. Hamid Shirvani, President of California State University, Stanislaus, and I am the host for this new program. Dialogue will feature interviews with community leaders, elected officials, faculty, students, and other friends of the university. At Cal State Stanislaus, we are proud of the strong partnership we have throughout the community, and we are equally proud of the initiatives we have accomplished to build a nationally recognized, top-quality institution of higher education. Our guest for today's program is United States Congressman George Radanovich. Congressman Radanovich is currently serving his 6th term in the U.S. House of Representatives, totaling 12 years of public service at the federal level. Honorable Radanovich has a deep affection for the agricultural interests of the Central Valley and was the first full-time winemaker to serve in Congress since Thomas Jefferson. The congressman serves on the Energy and Commerce Committee as well as on the Resources Committee and is chairman of the Resources Subcommittee on Water and Power. We are delighted to have him as our guest today. George, welcome to the program.
Dr. Shirvani, it's great to be on the show. Thanks for
pleasure to have you.
Being here.
Let us begin about what you see as the most important issues facing Congress today. I know there's a little bit of bumpy road, so to speak, but it would be wonderful for our audience to know what is your feeling about it.
Thank you, Doctor. And there's a number of issues that are facing the Congress today. Some are national and international in scope, and some are very important to us here on the ground, local in scope in the San Joaquin Valley. Of course, front and center, I think, is the war against terror and the war in Iraq. And as you know, it's heading into a tough part of with especially the battle in Baghdad to try to nurture this new government to take control. There's a great amount of difficulty there currently, and our hearts and prayers are with the soldiers on the ground. But I do believe that the president's idea of killing terrorists anywhere but on American soil, but especially where they come from in the Middle East, and spreading freedom in that part of the world is our best defense against another attack like 9/11. And now, of course, this is a big issue on the agenda in Washington today, but there's also a lot of information and controversy about the immigration issue. And of course, 9/11 kind of brought that issue to the fore because of the problem of illegal immigration in this country and the need to be able to get a grip on that so that terrorists aren't allowed to slip through into our country and as again, do what they did in 9/11. And the Congress is debating between two big pieces of this thing. And my job is to make sure that while we secure our borders, which ought to be our number one priority, that our ag industry, which is so vital to not only us in the Valley, but also in the state of California, since it is the state's largest industry, that we can make sure that we get a good labor supply to this industry while we're trying to figure out the illegal immigration problem. So those seem to be the two big issues, I think, in Washington. Locally, as you know, in this part of the Valley, but in the entire San Joaquin Valley, we're facing so much growth. Everybody wants to live here, and it brings with it traffic congestion, water issues, and air quality issues. And so those are the three big things that I try to help with in Washington, but they're clearly local issues for our San Joaquin Valley.
It's interesting that you say that. I mean, we're going to go back to international issues, but let's focus on local, which I'm sure most of us are interested first, and that is this whole notion of water resources, and water availability, as well as the air quality issues, both. But water is probably the most paramount issue here for Central Valley. Would you think, with the growth that you're talking about, and of course everyone is talking about, that I've heard some, and I've seen some projections of maybe doubling the population in 10 years or two. Projections that at least we're going to have one more million inhabitants in the valley. I have seen it for myself in the past 16 months that I've been here, that the community is growing rapidly. Now, what do we do about the water? How do we conserve the agriculture and respond to the community in terms of residential and commercial developments that is needed?
Well, that is a tough nut to crack, and I think you're right, Doctor. We have this incoming population that puts a big burden on our water delivery systems. We've also got a reshifting of priorities that I think has occurred in California, so that the need to protect the environment in a good way is in the mix now, where in the past it wasn't. And so we have to try to meet this growing water demand, at the same time provide water in the system to go to the environment for environmental protection. And that's what our big dilemma is. I think there's a lot that we can do that is more pleasing to the environmental community, and that is things like underground water storage. In fact, in my own district down in Madera, we were able to identify a 13,000-acre parcel that is literally a sieve. It can take water into the ground and store it very well, sandy soils and such. And the Madera Irrigation District was able to purchase this, and they're going to be putting in an underground water storage facility that will bring an additional 55,000 acre feet of water for that part of the valley. And anywhere we can get things like that, we need to. But I think that we need to realize, too, that we're not able to meet our ever-demanding water supply through things such as that. Desalinization is something that doesn't work here, very important in Southern California. We need to have, as well, above-ground water storage, and those are always the controversial ones. And there's two sites in the valley that are of particular importance, I think. One is the Auburn Dam, which is to the north, actually east of Sacramento, and then the other is one called Temperance Flat, which is on the San Joaquin River, east of Fresno. And those seem to be the two, I think, most popular above-ground water storage projects that are in the state right now that will directly affect the valley. And they're big projects. And either one of them, if they were approved today, would take about 10 years to build. But I think we have a tough job convincing folks from other parts of the state that we can't manage it all through conservation and underground water storage, that we have to face the fact that we're going to need another dam or two in the mix before this is all done. Not just for water supply, but also for flood control. There's still that big element of flood control that we need to deal with in the Delta and in other areas nearby.
It's interesting that, speaking of water and the environment, we've heard that, I'm sure many of your constituents, members of your constituencies have heard that you've done a landmark victory with settling a major environmental, I would say, puzzle. And as usually we know, you're bipartisan in most of the times, and at least you've been one of the best bipartisan people that Congress members that there has been. And apparently you were able to really settle that case beautifully. Would you comment?
It worked, Ham. I got to tell you that some things seem to take forever, but there was, as you mentioned, the Natural Resources Defense Council, NRDC, filed a lawsuit against the Friant water users, which are the ones from about Madera down to Bakersfield on the San Joaquin River. They provide the water. They're the water agencies that provide the water. NRDC sued them 18 years ago to reestablish a salmon fishery on the San Joaquin River, and the judge weighed in favor of the NRDC, which would require, this was the scary thing, and they've been still fighting it for 18 years. Could require as much as 500,000 acre feet, which is basically all the water behind Friant Dam, in order to water the river for some fish, and put almost all of the farming community out in the cold. So it was a real tough thing. And about 14 months ago, I proposed to Senator Dianne Feinstein that perhaps if we encouraged them to get back to the table, maybe there was a way that they could find a way to reestablish the fishery, or at least put more water down the river, and still not create a large impact to the other water users, both urban and agriculture in the system. And lo and behold, they worked. Some fantastic people sat at the table and knocked it out finally, and they came to an agreement. And there were some real concerns that our local water districts, Turlock Irrigation District and Modesto Irrigation District, had. They didn't want to be adversely affected by this ruling, and the senator and I were able to get them into the room and pound out their concerns. And I'll be darned if everybody didn't sign off on the thing. And that rarely happens in California water.
We're certainly very appreciative of you, and I know I've heard in different occasions and different quarters that a number of our community members were commending you for taking the leadership on this major lawsuit and conflict, and you resolved it. Apparently it was resolved beautifully with everyone's in agreement.
We were able to do it, and we got water reliability out of it, and that
Right.
was there's more certainty to water
Right.
now, which should make us all feel better, I think.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Most recently, we have had a report that was produced by the Commission on the Future of Higher Education, headed by Secretary Spelling, Margaret Spelling. What do you think about this report? It is certainly a controversial report. There are many who agree with the content and direction of the report. There are some disagreements. What's your take on it?
I know the situation in higher education is that tuition costs have gone up dramatically in our state universities in California over the last, at least 5 years.
Right.
And I don't, the amount of Pell Grants, which is what we can provide at the federal level to students who post-secondary education, has not gone up. It's held constant. I think over the last 2 years, the funding level is at about, was it 13
Right.
billion, I believe.
But last year it was actually cut down, was reduced.
Oh, it
Pell
was?
Grants,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Last year was reduced, but you're absolutely correct that the public funding has gone up nationally at about 35%.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly in California, we have seen much more than that
Mm-hmm.
in the past decade.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost tripled. But with the Pell Grant decreasing and tuition and fees increasing, that's a major issue in higher education.
Mm-hmm.
At least these are major issues that we are facing on a day-to-day basis.
Mm-hmm.
So would you believe that the new Congress would be willing to take that on?
Oh, I think so. I know that the president has been real, especially through K through 12, has been dedicating himself to being the No Child Left Behind president. But in higher education, I think that I will say this, that education in state universities is still the best deal in town because of the quality of education that's provided. It's still very affordable. I would dedicate myself to getting as much funding as we can to not only to Cal State Stanislaus students, but those in the other state universities in California, still being fiscally responsible with this much. I think that the demand there is great. I understand that the current system is taking care of about 5.4 million students nationwide. But anything that we can do to help the students get access to their education is something that I want to do my best to do, keeping in mind that we need to be fiscally responsible with the federal dollars that are there as well at the same time.
Well, we're certainly appreciative of your support, and but we want you to know that California State University is really is the university that has been showcased in the Secretary Spelling's report as one of the perhaps the best university that serves the students, and with a balance of access and quality, and with the outreach programs that we have, going to high schools and really trying to increase the pipeline of students coming, getting them interested. As you know, one of the major issues, social issues now, is that less and less students are interested to come to university. So that's
because of the increasing cost. Huh?
Well, that's part of it, and also, but many of them are not qualified.
Okay.
So we have to really go back and try to get this student interested in university, and that interest is somehow around 8th grade and 9th grade. If we don't get them interested, we're going to lose them, because the high school dropout rate is very high, and those who graduate from high school in California and of course nationally, but certainly in California, many students graduate from high school and they're not qualified to go to universities. They haven't, in California, they haven't finished A to G curriculum. And even if they're finished, they require remediation, and that's certainly one of the one area that we have been emphasizing, trying to improve the K-12 education so that less and less students require remediation.
Does that, Doctor, create the need for the university to outreach to the high schools in this part of the valley?
Absolutely,
huh?
and we have started, and CSU in general has a number of programs that helps K-12 education, essentially to get them better equipped, better prepared, and then get them interested to university, to higher education. And we have, and that's why we got showcased in this report, in the Margaret Spelling's report, as a university that does.
It's very effective.
Exactly.
Very good.
So we are on the run in that aspect.
Good.
Coming back, you mentioned immigration, illegal immigration. That's a real hot button topic. Certainly. What are we going to do? I was apparently today, President signed this bill for building 700 miles of walls. But do you think that would stop the immigration, or should be other policies?
Well, no wall is going to stop illegal immigration, and I think if we were more concerned about national security, we ought to be building that wall probably on the Canadian border rather than on the Mexican border. And this bill, unfortunately, looks to the southern border of the United States for this fence. Now, I'm a firm believer that we need to get our borders under control because they have been out of control. 12 years ago, when I first went to Congress, the then Governor Pete Wilson sent a bill to the President, Bill Clinton at the time, and it was for $3.5 billion, and that was the cost of illegal immigration on the state of California for 1 year, 12 years ago. It's obviously been higher now. And with the issue of national security, as I mentioned before, it makes it more imperative that we get that job done. But focusing on that really does not do solving the issue any service, because if you really want to fix illegal immigration in the United States, we need to do it all together. And that is do the enforcement things that I think are good. In some parts of the border, there needs to be a fence. A fence alone will not do the trick. We need to discuss, have a great discussion about, who's going to do the jobs in America that Americans will not do. And you know what? It's a fact of life that at least in agriculture and some other industries, we need other people from other countries to come in and do this work, and that's okay. That's all right. We're a prosperous nation, and that's a good thing. And at the same, and the third thing that we need to deal with is have a plan for the undocumented that are here already. And that's the third rail of this whole issue. That's the one. That's the real tough one. But in 1996, we had immigration reform. 1986, we had one. Left out a guest worker bill. Guess what? It gave amnesty at the time. Now we have 12 million more illegal immigrants. It didn't solve the problem. 96 tried to do it right, and we didn't do it then. It's really up to us, even though we're miles apart on this issue, to stick to it and get it done right this time, so that no matter what happens, and we solve the undocumented and the guest worker, and number one of all, make the borders safe, we do it in such a way that we're not facing this problem 10 or 15 years from now. And if we don't do it comprehensively, then we're selling ourselves short, because we won't solve the problem. So I'm encouraging my colleagues to not only, that the first priority is taking care of the borders, but at the same time, we need to start now on the guest worker bill, and we need to start now on figuring out what we're doing with our undocumented here. And hopefully, we'll have that debate when we go back to Congress after this election.
Is there any hope for that temporary work permit?
I believe so, yes. I do. I think that I've got a number of enough colleagues back there that understand that you can't just shut down the border without having a legal way for people to come into this country and work. And I believe that we'll get that at a minimum done this year, I do believe.
Moving again to one other issue that is very important, transportation.
Yes.
As you know, this is it's a subject that is very near and dear to Governor Schwarzenegger, and also near and dear to many of us, as I'm sure you are local enough that and travel enough on Route 99, and every day one looks at California and California highways and compares it to places like Arizona, and it's like a developing country. I mean, in comparison to place, you get out of Phoenix Airport and you go up and down on these beautiful, beautiful roads. And California was a pioneering state. Back in '60s, California highways. Everybody was jealous of California highways, and now it's potholes. I mean, But so, is there? I hope that. Is there any hope for help from the Congress?
Yes, and I will say on a couple of fronts. I was able to get interstate designation for Highway 99. Now, 99 is a state highway, and so most of the funds are from the state. They can come through the federal government, but they're usually administered by the state. We have interstate status given to 99 now, which means we've got 12 years at the most to get it up to interstate standards so that we can make it an interstate. That is the first time the federal government can come directly to the table on this issue. And so we're going to be able to have an impact on that. I think the governor as well, through the Partnership for the San Joaquin Valley that you had mentioned, is going to be able to give us the ability to act regionally when we face funding issues with Sacramento, so that we're more powerful in going against places like Los Angeles and the Bay Area and the other parts of the state, so that we get those dollars back here. So that's going to be I think a key thing, is that we now have federal focus on 99 to get it to an interstate that brings funding into it, and as a region we're beginning to act more together so that we have clout against the rest of the state to get the funding here.
That's just wonderful. We are very much looking forward to that, and thank you for taking us through that designation. That's very significant for this community. And do you have any other comment that you want to share with us, because we're kind of coming to a close, because we know that there is an election on November 7th, very soon. So we wanted to see if you have any last-minute comments.
Well,
to your constituents.
Thank you. Campaigning hard, and it's going to be an interesting election. And I have an opponent, and we've debated throughout the community, and I think people have a choice, and I hope they choose me. But I think more importantly, it's our constitutional obligation to go vote on November 7th. So, regardless of who you vote for, I think it's important to get out there and vote for your member of Congress. I like to think that I'm have been the best fit for this congressional district. So that when I vote for my constituents, it's not a hard vote for me. But it's up to the people to judge. They're the ultimate judge. I can say anything I want, but they're the ones that decide. So I would hope people go out and vote November 7th. I'd prefer you'd vote for me. I would ask that you vote for me. But more importantly, go to the polls and do your constitutional duty.
Thank you so much, sir. Congressman Radanovich, I wanted to thank you for your time today and for your dedication to CSU Stanislaus, to our community, to Central Valley. And it has been an honor to have you, and very much appreciate your support. Very much appreciate your being here with us today as our first host of this dialogue.
All right.
We are very honored. This has been a dialogue with Congressman George Radanovich. In the weeks and months to come, we're looking forward to bringing many more episodes of dialogue to your household. So tune in next time to our dialogue. Cheers.